let's talk about Newcastle. Newcastle's Lee Marshall suggested the club were duped into allowing MP Robert Jenrick to film a promo video on the pitch. Do they have a right to be frustrated? Does he have a right to be frustrated?
Absolutely. I think that was terrible, and I think that Robert Jenrick, who's a contender for the Tory Conservative Party leadership, had interviewed Sir John Hall, who is one of the great stalwarts of Newcastle, but they were very naughty in doing that on the pitch and around the stadium to try and get the kudos from the club. And this is where I've always been very angry with politicians who, when it's an election or whether it's something like this in his own leadership election, they always try and get an association with football, and they try and be man of the people, and be, and it's wrong for politics to use football like that. And so that was very naughty. I think the club have said so, and it may well rebound on Jenrick in terms of the way he's tried to handle that, because people can see through it pretty quickly. And certainly for the club would not have endorsed it, I'm sure, because they would remain neutral. And so it was wrong to do that. I don't think, if Donald Trump or Kamala Harris went and did something at the Dallas Cowboys or the New York Jets, I don't know how well it would be received. But, it's certainly over here with the football, it's not the right thing to do, and the club's got every right to be angry and to expose the fact that they were not properly briefed.
There's also reports now that there have been some fallouts behind the scenes at Newcastle. Eddie Howe and some other leadership. Is this concerning for the club moving forward?
Yeah, look, this is a big story, I think, as far as Newcastle's concerned. There's so many leaks coming out of the club at the moment over the Amanda Staveley departure, and that she was basically forced out. PIF apparently have left Darryl Eales, the chief executive, in more control with the new sporting director, Paul Mitchell. And they've had a bad transfer window, and so that hasn't gone well for that group. The fans, they had a couple of good results, but the fans, I think, are watching this one very closely. They had a great affection for Amanda and the way that they had taken over the club and acted the first year or two. I must admit they're probably the most successful I've seen in handling a transition into a new ownership. They didn't do anything knee-jerk. They did things in a considered way, and I applauded them for the way that was handled. We'll see how Newcastle handle it going forward, but certainly it hasn't got off to the best start, and there certainly seems to be leaks of dissatisfaction amongst quite a number of groups at the top.
For sure, and we saw this summer, as you mentioned, the transfer window wasn't quite what Newcastle were expecting. They were unable to get the Mark Gahey deal over the line. Are PSR rules now making it impossible for clubs to invest and compete at a higher level than they were used to a couple years ago, the way Manchester City did it? Are we never going to see an influx the way that we saw Manchester City do that before?
No, I don't think it's just so much PSR in this case. I was convinced the Gahey deal was going to be done. I think I said so on our podcast. Where I think this has come is to what we just talked about before in terms of the new leadership group within Newcastle. Amanda and her husband had great negotiating skills, and I don't think the new group that was really having the power to do this managed to get the deal over the line. That's my own opinion, and I think it was more a problem on the Newcastle side about how to handle Steve Parish at Crystal Palace and how that transaction was actually handled, more than it was about actual numbers and paying the right money. So I don't think PSR would be the villain in this issue. Although Newcastle were going to be close, I think they could have got this done, and I think they'll regret not getting it done as well.